Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds. Hope you all are doing good. Lots of crazy news going on in the world of bees, and we're here to take some questions and talk beekeeping. I mean, that's what beekeepers do. We do that more than we keep bees, probably, but hope you all are doing well. And we will get to a couple topics real quick. Laurel, if you don't mind sharing that to the Hive Life page, that'd be great. She's always on to everything like that. I say it, but I'm sure she's already done it. All right, a lot of people pouring in. So, what do you all think about the Aussies having varroa mites? It sounds like, unfortunately, the cat is out of the bag, and maybe they can get ahead of this, but unlikely. The more reports I hear about it, the less likely I think that it's going to be able to be stopped, which is a wish that I would not wish upon my least favorite person in the world. But things happen. The only silver lining I can think of is that they have European and American beekeepers and other folks that have experienced it longer, so they can hopefully learn from our shortcomings and mistakes, so they can be faster on the uptake and all that stuff. All right, caught a stream, Lane Family Farmstead. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, we just Laurel and I were talking about scheduling these things out and how that would be ideal, and that's on the agenda for the future. However, we're just so busy right now. We cannot plan anything out. It's just if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. All right. So of course we'll take questions. I also wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on right now here. We are full on robbing season. There's a trickle of pollen coming in the morning. I've got ultra bee set out, but the bees just won't touch it. And it's something I've observed over the last decade or so, that if there's a trickle of pollen coming in, they just will not use the ultra bee pollen sub or any dry sub. Now they will take pollen patties right now, and we were throwing some on today. Not not absolutely necessary, but I think it helps. Shane Williams, why can't you graft with eggs? That's a great question. I don't know. I'm not sure anyone has a perfectly clear reason why, but it just doesn't work. When GM Doolittle invented grafting, GM Doolittle is considered the father of modern day queen rearing. And back in the early 1900s, when he started grafting them, that's one thing that he observed is you cannot transfer an egg over. And I've tried it myself. Just can't get it to work. And I believe that's because the bees they understand that even if it's a wax cell, this is not theirs. Why is why is it upside down like this? We're not trying to raise queens right now. I think they just cannibalize the egg. Whereas a larvae, as soon as they get up to the larvae, as long as they have plenty of nutrition, they feed it. I don't know. For whatever reason, it just doesn't work. And that's, I guess, all that really matters. Well, Lane Family Farm said, "Welcome to beekeeping." It's oh, you're in for a treat. I really love beekeeping. I mean, I was up till almost 2 a.m. this morning on the phone with a beekeeping business and a friend as well. And I love it. Absolutely love it. I lose sleep over it. I show up to places really, really tired. And they're like, "Well, why are you so tired?" Bees. All right. Well, people from all over the place. Fantastic. South Dakota, New York. We have a lost Buckeye fan. So Lane Family Farmstead has a question. Here in West Virginia, we apparently are in the dearth. So I've been feeding them sugar water and they're going through about 2 quarts a day. Is that a lot? Not seeing any evidence of theft. Yeah. So that can be pretty normal for a good healthy colony. I don't know how large your colony is. You need to do some inspections. What I would like to see, if it's a 10 frame box of bees and it's pretty full or very full, that you then have another box on top and you'd have at least what would be a medium's worth of food. It'd be better to have too much food this time of the year than not enough. It's a little bit trickier in spring, like April and May, because there's natural blackberry and clover and all kinds of stuff coming in. And if you're feeding on top of that, it could plug out the brood nest. It's still possible for you to do that. But what you'd like to see is you should have in a 10 frame box your outermost frames. Once they get large enough to occupy that, the outermost frames are honey. Inner frames are usually bee bread, maybe with a little bit of honey, maybe a little bit of brood. And then most of your brood is going to be in the middle. And you should have rings of nectar or sugar syrup above that. If you start seeing a lot of your sugar syrup getting down in between the larvae and eggs down in the brood, then you may need to back off a little bit. And obviously, once they start getting about 8 frames strong or so, you need to add another box. If it's a box of foundation, then pull up a frame of eggs or young larvae, and then just keep feeding them. But this late in the game, hopefully we'll have a good fall flow. But they just don't need to run out of nutrition, and bees do consume a lot. You have to consider if you're feeding 1 to 1, by the time that condenses down to honey thickness, half a gallon would probably be a pint of honey, maybe thickness, sugar syrup, maybe somewhere around there. So that's not a lot, especially for a good bunch of bees. Bees have to use a lot of energy to cool the hive down. Obviously, they have to eat, and every time they fly or do anything, it's like whenever we get any product from point A to point B, there's a fuel bill, and that's what the sugar syrup's going towards. All right, lots of people jumping in. And any updates on Michael Palmer coming to the conference? Unfortunately, I think he's wanting to wait another year. I have been chatting with him periodically. I think he's just wanting to kind of wait some things out for a little while. And he is planning on going to Chile in 2024. And I'm planning on doing my best to be there too at Appomondia and seeing what's up with that. But I'm hoping to have Michael Palmer at our conference no later than 2024. If he said tonight that, hey, I can come to your conference this year, even if we didn't have room, we would make room. I would totally make it happen. All right, so Western Canada. Hopefully, you Canadians are having a good season up there, and it's getting going good. All right, questions. Oh, okay. I already got to that one. Hey, Cayman, I have a nuke I installed this year in northern Colorado. I noticed my queen has damaged wings in my last inspection. She seems to lay well, so do you think I should take action? Just look at that brood pattern. That should tell you all you need to know about it. If the brood pattern's really solid and everything's looking good, especially if you have other hives and you can compare it, then it makes it a little bit easier to know what you could be having with a good queen. However, what can happen sometimes when queens get mated or come back to a colony? There's a few bees, or maybe she accidentally goes into a mating nuke close by, whatever. She gets roughed up a little bit, not enough to damage her internal organs or laying production, but it could be enough to where a couple of bees get a hold of her and rough up her wings and beat them up really bad. I've seen it happen before. And if it happens prior to their flight to mate, then that's a big deal. But if it happens after they have come back from getting mated and they've gotten mated well, that's not the end of the world. There are some beekeepers that actually clip the queen's wings. I've never done that myself, but as long as she's laying good, I say let it ride. Okay, man, that jumped around. How long will Pro Sweet last in summer? How do you get 1 to 1 syrup with Pro Sweet? Randall, send me a message. We've chatted before multiple times. I don't have the chart on me, but I do have a chart that was put together by my friend Byron Ferris and Dick Brickner, and it will give you exact instructions how to use Pro Sweet or something very similar to get it to 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. I'm using the syrup. Now, how long will it last? If you don't dilute it down, then I'm getting 10,000 pounds of it Wednesday, and I don't plan on using all that this year. I hope not. I'll probably use two of those, 2/3 of that, and two of the totes, and then I will hopefully have one left over for spring buildup. We'll see how that goes. Depends on how fall is. We're already feeding fairly heavy right now. Just upgraded my feeders too, so that's nice. But it should last just fine. It's best if the syrup is fresh. There are beekeepers that store it for years. I'm actually feeding some syrup that I've had for a few years, like 2.5 or something like that, and the bees are doing fine on it. However, I prefer feeding fresh stuff to go into winter, and this time of the year, they're able to take cleansing flights. I just feed it, and I don't seem to have any issues. All right. Perrysville, Indiana. I have been through Perrysville. By the way, I will be at Evansville, Indiana this next week. They have the Heartland Apicultural Society going on. I'm going to be going up there and seeing several cool people, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm also going to be a lot of people have thought that I'm selling wax dip boxes. I'm not. A friend of mine, I used to dip my own boxes. Now he's dipping all kinds of stuff. He's about 40 miles north of me, and I'm just helping him sell some of his equipment. Um, but he's at our Hive Life conference, and he also is selling wax dip boxes around this area. So a lot of people have thought that those were actually my wax dip boxes. I did supervise, and I'm still trying to give constructive feedback, and it's a process, but I'm trying to make sure the product that goes out is, you know, something that I would use or better. Okay. Basswood still going here, North Central Ohio. Send it down. Send it down. John Hatch. I made two splits. The bees made queen cells and both hatched. One is a huge, beautiful queen. The other queen is short. Do you think I should requeen or just combine the two colonies? John, I don't know how long those queens have been laying. I would give the queen a chance. That small queen, I'd give her a brood cycle if she's as long as she's laying good eggs at the end of that 21 day or so period. As long as the patterns are good and everything looks good, if the queen's a little bit smaller, the proof is really in the brood pattern. I do like bigger queens, but I've had some massive queens that performed very poorly. But if at the end of that 21, 24 day period, she doesn't seem quite good, cut your losses, because if there's something a little bit off with that queen, that's going to affect, they're not going to overwinter good, especially in an area like yours where you're way up north. And then then I would combine them back. Hey, One Shoe, hope you're doing good up there. Good to see you on tonight. Howdy from Nebraska. TD says I'm trying to talk Vino into coming this year. Well, good deal. Keep trying, and he's welcome to email me, and we can discuss some things and maybe find some way to make it a little bit easier on him. To maybe I can throw a couple bones his way or something like that. My supers are full of honey, but they're not capped, but they're not capping over, but half. It's been this way for a month. Any ideas? Well, Bobby, um, sometimes bees just don't want to cap them. Sometimes they'll cap them and they're not even fully ripe. I don't know 100% why. Bees do weird stuff. And honestly, the end of your flow may be near and they just aren't making as much wax. And so they're just not wanting to finish capping them. However, they could be just fine. I have literally pulled frames that were just maybe 25% capped and took a refractometer to them, and they were not only below 18% moisture content, they were 16.4, if I remember correctly. You just need to watch it because, if you don't have a refractometer, you just don't know. And if you have something that's 18.9, 19, or 20, you could end up get with some fermented honey. And that would be a big disappointment. You can get a refractometer on Amazon. I believe we have one in our shopping cart that we've purchased in the past. That was like 20 bucks or something like that, maybe 28, 30 bucks. Laurel says she's going to put the link down below. Oh, okay. Laurel, the power that is my wife is giving me feedback over here. So I like you guys, but when she talks, I listen. Try to, anyways. Okay, so really quick, for those of you who are coming to our Hive Life conference, Laurel is going to put a link down below. You can look at the website and see all that's going on there. And we have a ton more to update. Once I get the honey pulled and all these queens mated, we were making splits today for mating nukes and stuff. We will be updating the Hive Life conference tremendously. What I wanted to show you though is if you are going to come in the future, get a ticket, or if you've already got signed up, you should get an email that right after you sign up that has, well, you can't see it because of the way things are, I suppose. Let's try this. I'm going to dim it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So you should get an email that you can pull up on your phone or something like that. We can scan this. If you don't want to do all the tech stuff, you can print it out. And this works too. You come to our conference, you have this ready to go. We scan it. You get your goodie bag, lanyard. Um, you walk right into over $1 million of bee product, and it's just that fast. Last year, we felt like it was really fast. This year, we plan on going crazy fast. No one likes lions. I definitely don't. Same thing with the food. So Laurel's going to leave some links down below, and thank you, Laurel. Whew, it was a hot day today. Sue Colby, Hive Life Conference. I think she may be at the ABF, and it's the same week as ours, unfortunately, this year. That might not be the case in the future. But yeah, she's definitely somebody that we're considering. Okay. 60 degrees there, Dan. Man, I'll be okay with that. I'm sure you'd love to have our heat. Man, it's just been brutally hot. We're so dry. We did get a little bit of rain today, but it was about a quarter of an inch, and we really need about 3 inches to get where we're supposed to be. We have a queen that has laid wall to wall brood, no stores. Should we worry? Pappy's bees. If there's no stores, then yeah, feed them. I would be worried because there may be food coming in right now, but I imagine at some point you'll have a dearth, Pappy's bees, and bees just will crash if they don't have enough food to prolong their existence. Bees look really good in spring. This is one thing that you kind of chuckle about a little bit because I remember being this way my first year or two in beekeeping. But you see these new people get onto Facebook or whatever, and they just don't know. But they talk about, well, I'm trying honeybee healthier. I'm trying this thing out this year, or I haven't fed my bees at all, and they're doing good, and they've had bees for 4 to 8 weeks. And but one of the ones I saw recently was someone was talking about how good honeybee healthy was. It was making their bees perform really good, and they had been using it since April and into May, which is the easiest time of the year for people in this part of the country. We have so much pollen that's got probiotics, all these beneficial things for bees. We have natural nectar as well, plus they're feeding them. Anything looks good that time of the year. Try that in late August, early September, and then you'll know if something's really working for you or not. But where I'm going with that, Pappy's bees, is you could have a flow going on, and those bees are literally taking everything they're getting from nature and putting it into building their colony up. But if nature cuts off on you real quick and they haven't had time to build any reserves, then that colony is going to die if you don't take some evasive action. So, one thing I noticed this year, well, it's something I've noticed in the past too, but I made a point to really pay attention because I'm trying to learn a lot more about our dearth and nutrition. colonies that came out of winter that were strong and powerful, that were our honey production colonies at the end of the flow, which ended about 10 to 14 days ago. I can go into the brood nest and there's about the equivalent of 3 to maybe 4 frames of bee bread. That's awesome. We need that to sustain ourselves to the fall flow, which will start late August, and we'll start getting some pollens again. It's not just about nectar, pollens. That's where the money's at, in my opinion. And but looking at splits that we made in early April, with brand new queens going into those colonies. They're massive colonies. They were double deeps, and we got most of them to draw out a third deep box. They have maybe one frame of bee bread, and they're cutting back their population much more severely than the established colonies that had the excess amount of bee bread because they just can't, they know they can't sustain that population. So, just as beekeepers, be aware, like Pappy is with his bees, that he's got tons of brood, but not very much stores. And I would be watching that colony closely, and if necessary, heck, put 3, 5 gallons of sugar syrup on them. And I love to see a colony in our dearth period have a medium's worth of honey till the fall flow. And they definitely stay stronger than a colony that does not have that. If it's not honey, then it needs to be sugar syrup. I'm a little shy of taking 7. Okay, I think there's some talks going on that I don't quite get. I think they're to other people. What's your elevation, Mr. Reynolds? 5'6". I'm not 100% sure. I'm really not 100% sure what elevation we are. Um, we're on top of a hill in Tennessee, so it's higher than the valleys. I do know that. So Bonnie Joseph says, "Do you know if there are any boxes left for the Wednesday Bowling Green delivery?" Yes. And if you go to info at appalachianivory.com, let me see if I can pull up the email. Oh, you already put the email down below? Oh, you're always ahead of me. We're at 600 feet elevation. Okay, cool. Yeah, basically, I'm just like a puppet. I mean, so well, there's these strings behind me that attach to the chair, and yeah. Do you want to talk to the person who can talk or the person who knows what's going on? So, um, anyways, yeah, Bonnie Joseph, there is a few boxes left. I know that I think there's like 50 boxes left or something like that for the Bowling Green pickup. I have a freezer full of frames, half full of honey. Will those be okay to put in for stores for them? Absolutely. I have some frames that I pulled from a colony today that just had too much stores, and it was half honey, half sugar syrup. And so, as I'm making these mating nukes, we pulled those off about 10 frames off of that colony. And as I'm making these mating nukes, I'm giving them a frame of capped emerging brood, an extra shake of bees or two, and then dropping in a full frame of honey or slash syrup, and that's awesome for the mating nukes. You can use that for all kinds of other things too. That's such an easy way to feed. All right, I missed some questions up above. I want to say a big thank you though to Misty Gregg. Thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing and for coming on to our channel tonight. And if you have any questions, make sure that you get them to me. All right. So yeah, if I don't see the question the first time, I still don't see the question, but you feel free to say it twice because this thing jumps around on me and I just miss some stuff. Honestly, what you could do, just for people who are asking bee related questions or conference related questions, something like that, maybe put in bold Kamon and then ask your question because some people are talking to each other, and I'm totally cool with that. But sometimes it's a little difficult for me to sort through it. Misty Greg, will the wax dip boxes be there? I'll bring a truck. Well, there is supposed to be some wax dip boxes at the Evansville too. I do know there are some left. However, if you want to make sure that you get what you want, Misty, you may need to email the Appalachian Hivery folks and make sure that the guy that runs it, his name's Dustin, and make sure that you get what you want because he may have extras and that's his plan, but they may sell too. So I don't know. And I'm not a part of that side of things. So he may have 200 left. From what he told me earlier today, it sounded like he has like 50 to 75, but he's going to try to dip extra now. I don't know what's going to end up happening. All I know is tomorrow I'm heading to Missouri and I'm going to pick up some VSH queens from Corey Stevens. So that'll be interesting. Oh, Sherry Molina catching a swarm and glutton for punishment. Well, that's beekeepers in a nutshell. Matt Kirkland. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Sue Kobe, and she's definitely well respected and definitely someone we would like to have at our conference in the future. Kamon, are you going to sell any of the pro suite that you pick up? Absolutely not, Ron. I wish I had enough room to get more, but I just don't have time to sell a little bit here and there. But I may look into having syrup at our conference this year and have that available. Just the logistics of it are pretty daunting, but I'm going to see if maybe we pump it into buckets, but then we have to haul all the buckets up there, and then you got the cost of the buckets, cost of the syrup, and then I have to hire somebody to manage that for me because I definitely can't do it. But we're looking into that, and it'd still be a whole lot cheaper than buying it from Man Lake at 5 gallons at a time. Hmm. Okay. Are you going to do a Laurel fundraiser tonight? I don't know, Shane. I don't tell Laurel to do much of anything. It's all up to her. But no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Poor girl's had a long day, so I had her helping me do some work till the AM this morning. I was on the phone. She was working on conference stuff till like 2 in the morning, and then getting the kids ready for church, and then not a lot of sleep for mothers, that's for sure. And then after church was over, out splitting bees during robbing. I mean, the robbing was nasty today, and then we hauled the nukes down to another yard where we placed them out and got them away from all these huge hives so they wouldn't get sacked because right now it's ugly for small little colonies in the bee yard. So yeah, she's had a full day. I don't know. She may pop on here in a little bit. You were wrong. Gainsboro, 600 feet. Okay, we're between 800 and 900 feet elevation. Okay. That's great. That's awesome. I I'll be able to sleep so much better tonight. Apparently that wasn't the right thing to say. Apparently I need like a mute button. Hey, Brian Reese, thanks so much for coming on tonight and supporting us heavily yet again. We appreciate you. I got a text message I need to get back to you on, and I'm going to do it. I was thinking about it earlier today. I've just got so many irons in the fire. I can't even count how many irons there are, but I will totally get that taken care of, Brian. Uh, and I appreciate you coming to the conference for the third year in a row. Yeah, Laurel is too fast for me. I mean, gosh. What's your theory on the meaning of washboarding? Well, I really have no theory on it at all. Some people have talked about it like generating certain air currents and all kinds of stuff like that, but that doesn't make any sense to me at all. and you'll have some that are going this way and some that are going down and up and just to me, I'm sure there is a logical explanation for it. We just don't know what that is yet. Could be that bees just every now and then just need to chill and have a day off and line dance. Line dancing is quite fun to watch and sometimes fine to participate in. The robbing is out of control. Cayman entrances reduced, and they're even getting around the robber screens. You have any tricks of the trade? No, Wes. I wish I did. I was very livid and frustrated today with how bad the robbing was getting. I'm like, how am I supposed to hardly work bees? And really, Wes, what I've decided is from now on, all of my queens that for myself that I'm going to rear need to be done before the end of the first week of June. Because going into these big colonies that are 2 to 3 deeps, they're strong, but I'm pulling a frame of brood and a frame of food and a shake of bees, and there's just thousands of bees trying to rob colonies and incites robbing throughout the yard, and it's stressful on the entire yard. And then if I don't get the mating nukes out very quickly to a new location, plus everybody's hot and I don't want anything to overheat and that brood to die. If I don't get them out to a new yard and get them away from these big colonies that I'm splitting them off of, then they will be robbed out and all that work will have been for naught. I don't really have any tricks of the trade except don't start robbing. And yeah, that's helpful, isn't it? Um, I'm totally open to learning better ways to manage robbing. I hate it. I hate it. That's the worst characteristic of honeybees. It's really the only characteristic about bees that I truly hate. If I had the option of getting rid of stinging and swarming, I could get rid of those two things or get rid of robbing. I would get rid of robbing. Yeah, that's how much I hate robbing. Yeah, pay no attention to the one behind the screen. I definitely am not going to heed that advice. I got to pay attention. Can you feed back honey to a hive that has half-filled comb honey supers? Absolutely. If it's honey, I don't see any issue as long as it's actually your honey going into your comb honey supers. That'd be all right. It might look a little weird if you have a dark honey you're feeding back and the rest of it's light, but as long as it's 100% honey, I wouldn't have any issue with that. Came in, it snowed in Mount Washington last weekend, 6,000 feet. Well, the last couple weeks, it's been almost borderline 100 the whole time, and we would be happy to have some cold weather. We just need to meet in the middle, apparently. How often are you replacing combs in your hive, Cayman? Thanks from Arkansas. So I have left my combs in some cases as many as 15, 16 years. I had very few combs that were that old. Most of them had been cycled out, but a few of them had lasted that long. I did not see any issues. That used to be a very common practice to keep combs that long. However, these days, because I'm drawing so much comb out each year and selling some nukes, I'd say our average combs age is somewhere around 5 years at the most. But I still have some combs that are 10 years old, 9 years, 8 years, and my bees do great in them. They, so I'm not around an area that gets a lot of sprays. I don't take my bees into areas that get sprayed. And Bob, he runs his about 10 years. I think, yeah, well, up to 10 years, but he's also selling a lot of nukes off in colonies and really puts an effort into drawing new combs out. So I do think keeping your combs young is a good idea. But I'm also not one of those guys that you'll see getting on a rant about beekeepers using combs that are 3 or 4 years old because I have never seen any issue using combs that are 10 years old. Not even a little bit. Now, I have heard stories of beekeepers that go into areas that are heavily sprayed on a regular basis, and those bees are bringing in a lot of pollens and nectar that have been exposed to a lot of chemicals. And they have tested those combs, and for those type of folks, keeping them young is a higher priority. But I'm in rural Tennessee. Worst thing we have around here is ticks and mosquitoes. And that doesn't really affect the bees. It just affects the beekeeper. Okay. Cayman, I want to use Apoguard this year after I pull my supers. Is it safe to use with it being so hot here in central Virginia? It's best if you can get it on like a 85 or lower degree day, but I have used it at 90, 91 in that area before. You can use, instead of using the 50-gram dose, which is what they give you, you can instead of 2 rounds of 50, do 3 rounds of like 33 grams. You can kind of eyeball it, and that's a little bit easier on the bees. One thing, like if you got a double deep colony you're treating, put a shim, or if you just have an extra medium super, just don't have any frames in it, and just put it on the colony, put the treatment in. That'll allow the fumes to evenly disperse throughout the colony better, and so you don't get hot spots. And that's a good idea when you're using formic as well, is to make sure that there's plenty of room for that to circulate through the hive. But yes, I treated last year. Oh, another thing that I would do is make sure that you just put an extra lid on. So Apogard, formic acid, heat makes them off gas faster. So literally just putting an extra lid on the colony or something to get some a little more deep shade will kind of lower the off. It'll decrease the off gassing to a degree, and also having that bit of space there in that top super will do the same. But yes, I would treat. Now if it's 100 degrees, I would see about waiting until you could get something a little bit cooler. And if you get like a Apoguard, and you're like, it's only going to be 85 for this one day. That's okay. A lot of the main bit of it off gases in the first day or two. So maybe start of the night before, cool all the next day, and the bees will already start removing it, it- but it should be fine. Apogard, I only have really issues with it when it's blistering crazy hot, like 100 plus, or I'm putting too heavy of a dose on a little colony, like a 5 frame nuke, and putting like a 30, 50-gram dose on that. Where in Missouri are you going? I can't remember exactly. It's southeast. I remember that, over at Corey Stevens' place. Cayman, do you need to give extra sugar water when you replace a queen? Whenever I put a queen cage in and introduce a queen, unless there's a strong flow going on, I go ahead and feed them. Make sure that you don't encourage robbing, but put a little bit of feed in there. That helps the bees accept the queen better. And when bees are fed, they're just less stressed, and less stressed bees is good for queen introductions. All right, I'm going to say it again real quick. So a lot of people on here right now, 287 folks at least. And I wanted to say, for those of you coming to the conference, of course, we have over 500 people signed up for the conference so far, and it's not even July yet. So that is awesome. We'll be capping it at 1,500. If you signed up through the website and went all that stuff, and filled out your name, all that stuff, it's real basic. You will get an email, and it will have this. You will need this to get into the conference. Also, you can have a paper copy, or you can have it on your phone. All we have to do is check this, and you get your lanyard, your bag, you walk right in. We're talking seconds, and that's the way we want it. Try to keep it very, very quick for you guys so you can get in there and enjoy all the cool stuff. Okay. Came in my Carney bees draw odd shaped comb. My Italian bees don't. Have you noticed any difference between these species? No, I have not, Taylor. However, I don't know how many bees of Carneys you have versus Italians. I've run a bunch of both. And what I find is queens that aren't as good don't draw comb as good as queens that are mated well and laying hard. Because when queens lay hard, as a spot clears, they fill it with an egg. And then these bees are walking around wondering where they can put this nectar or sugar syrup. And then if there's no room, it sits in their tank for too long, and then they consume too much of it, and they, as a byproduct, they create wax, and they just basically can't help it. And so a strong laying queen is is going to force them to have to draw more comb. especially if they're building up a population and it's going forward, forward, forward. And why it's easy to draw comb in spring is not just because there's nectar or you're feeding, but you have pollen. So pollens are coming in. The bees want to ramp up to a large colony. Right now in my area, we're on a decline, and it's very difficult right now to draw any combs. There's a window after the honey flow you can draw combs, but it's just a few weeks, and once they start decelerating quite a bit, it's very difficult to get them to grow, even feeding a supplement. But as far as a difference, no, not really. Bees that have queens that are performing poorly, or maybe they're smaller because of a supersedure. They got a good queen now, but it's taking time for them to build a population. Maybe they have chalk brood or EFB. Great queens, get it done. Came if your mite load is up, can you use OA any time of the year? As long the EPA has approved it to be used with honey supers. However, legally, until the label is changed on the legal product, which is apabioxol, you are not supposed to use it on honey supers, and it's got to be with the legal apabioxol. Now, that being said, I don't find any reason to personally use it with honey supers on, because I'm too busy right now to be treating. But OA you can use any time of the year, but realize that it's a very gentle treatment. It really is a flash treatment that just zaps what is exposed, and you have to cover a big period, not necessarily 21 days, because you have capped brood over like a 13, 14-day period. Everything, they're capped for that long. So anything that you hit with the first treatment, as long as it's very effective, that first one, you're getting everything that's not capped. Now you have a 14-day roughly window of cap stuff. This isn't counting drones, but if I was going to use OA during a period of heavy brood rearing, I would focus on like a 14, 15-day period and probably do like 5 rounds in 15 days and then do a wash or something and see how effective that was. All right. What's the best way to draw a comb and honey super with new frames? Well, if you have deep combs and you're drawing into a deep super, it's easy to pull up a frame of brood in there, and that works really good to coax them up. However, if you have deeps for brood and then you have mediums for honey supers, that's where a lot of beekeepers, especially new ones, kind of get in a bad way, because they're called bait frames. You literally can use combs, like say all of your supers are going to be mediums for your honey, and all of your brood is going to be in deeps. That's pretty standard configuration, though I do see a lot of people more and more switching to mediums. Nothing wrong with that, just solid mediums. Actually, the advantage to that is everything's the same, everything's interchangeable, and it's easier to get new supers drawn because you can pull up frames of partially drawn foundation up into another box, and you can pull frames of eggs up into it and coerce them. But if you don't have a bait frame, it does make it very tricky. As if you have the perfect flow for drawing comb, then it's not a really strong one. You want a you want a steady flow. You want plenty of pollen so the bees are growing forward, but you want it steady to where the bees can expand at the same rate as things are incoming, as opposed to what we usually get during blackberry blossom, where it's just gallons and gallons of nectar and they can't draw it fast enough and they plug up the brood nest and they start swarming. So, yes, the best way is to have a bait comb, but other than that, I don't really know what else to do about it. Mhm. Sorry I'm late. Chores took longer. Those darn chores. Sorry, Robin. It's someone's got to do those chores. All right. I had to take care of something. Yeah, I had to. I'm having to mute some stuff. You know, I'm a Christian myself, but this is not the time for that to be just spewing stuff. And especially, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. At least that's what my mama keeps telling me. Um, Anyways, back to business. So, one of the things that we have been seeing in our Hive Life Facebook page is people commenting about food and stuff like that. And one thing I'm excited to say for those of you who are coming is that we're going to have a lot of coffee. So, about 3 times the amount of coffee that we had last year. So, we're going to have hot tea and a lot of other things too. Of course, that's free. Um, well, free for you guys. We're but we've gone through a different company and the prices is way more reasonable, so we can get a lot more coffee for the same price, and I'm excited about that. We had to buy out the caterers at the conference, and it's still going to be worth it though. The coffee should be better and lots of it, lots of tea. I'm gonna try to make it a lot more fun. Definitely got a lot of vendors coming for sure, man. It is going to be stacked. We're actually going to have some two new vendors that are coming all the way from overseas, is we are going to have the president and owner of Savan, which is a Turkish company. We're also going to have the owner of Enel, which is based out of Greece, come to our conference. We have, including the speakers at our conference, it's either 15 or 16 Canadians that I know of coming. So that's pretty cool. And then we're going to have a couple European countries represented as well. So I'm excited about that to learn some different ways of keeping bees and different flows. And sometimes you find out, wow, actually pretty similar. Can you explain the F1, F2 VSH queens? Are they less prone to show the VSH trait as the original mother? Man, I really don't have a good answer for you. Is that I would definitely say by F2, F1 to a degree, maybe, but F1s are still pretty darn good. Honestly, that's something that Corey Stevens or Sue Kobe or somebody who definitely has a whole lot more experience than I do in that should answer that question. And you know what? When I go see Corey tomorrow, I will try to remember to ask that very question, and then on the next live chat or maybe in a video address that. That's a good question. Tomahawk missile. I'm shocked that no one besides Dr. Ramsey was able to show the mites are eating the bee's liver. Oh yeah. Well, it's all it takes is thinking outside of the box and a little tenacity, and all of a sudden the world has changed. It doesn't necessarily take someone who's been a PhD for 20 years. That's how he got his PhD. That was his like thesis for his PhD, was doing that. So what a way to get your PhD right there, talking about kicking down the door. Um, but yeah, that was pretty crazy. Hey, I've got to say, real quick to anybody who's in Australia, you have our major condolences, and I hope that somehow miraculously they can get ahead of this, but it just does not sound very promising. However, if any Aussies need any advice, if I have anything to offer, I would definitely do my best. I know there's a YouTube videos we have on mite treatments. I don't know you all's flows and brood cycles down there, but when it comes to mites, it's about keeping them low and under control, and it's worth it. Keep them low. If you can keep them around 1%, 2% at the highest, definitely 1% or less going into winter, makes a big, 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 big difference. And don't underestimate them, because they will clean you out. Hey, got to say a huge thank you to Taylor Jarman yet again for supporting our channel, and thanks. And that, I tell you, right now, that picture he's got of being there on the water, that's the only place I want to be right now, because it is so darn hot, and that's all summer's good for. You know, this may be me being mean. I can be mean. Is that the only people I know that are always whining all winter long about summer, summer, summer? Either one, live in an area that doesn't get a hot, crazy summer, or two, their job is not an outside job where they actually have to work out in it because I don't have any weight to lose, and I feel like I just was wrung out this week. I was wrung out this week. I do not like summer. If I can't swim, s- I have no use for summer. Crossing Russians in my yard? No, no Russians. These are Italian VSH, if I remember correctly. Did you flex and ruin that one T-shirt? No, it was able to stretch. Really like to come to the conference, but it's sure hard to know what the weather will be like that time of the year, especially in Missouri. Could be sunny and 75 or -10 and a foot of snow. Well, and that's the thing. It was crazy because we rarely get snow that early in the year, and we actually rarely get snow. Um, I've lived in Tennessee since I was 12, and that last year was the most snow we've ever had in that 20 years. Of course, it has to be on the days that my conference is going on when everybody's trying to come down and make it inconvenient. However, at the conference itself, we got about that much snow. You go about an hour north, and they had about 9 to 10 inches, all the way up into Kentucky and all over the place. So you just never know what'll happen. I'm really hoping this next year it'll be like 55 degrees or something like that, and just freak all the Canadians out as they fly down and like, ah, it's summertime, eh? I could hear Ian saying that. Hey, Taylor Jarman, don't tempt me. I might do it. I suck at fishing, though. However, my brother says I'm a good luck charm because he's the guy that's great at fishing. And he brings me along because I don't catch anything. And he always does really good. So he says I drive the fish over to him. Whatever works. Hey, Cayman, what kind of warehouse do you have? A pole barn looking for good warehouses. Okay, so when I bought this house, Laura will tell you I purchased it for the pole barn. It's like 36 feet long by, if you count the building closed off in the back, like 40 something, and it's great. Oh, I love it. I can park my truck underneath it too in the middle bay. The one thing that'd make it a little bit nicer if it had a concrete floor, but working on that. I really don't have any suggestions on how to build one or who to go through for that. I will before too long. I'm hoping in the next couple years to build a warehouse, honey house. It won't be massive, massive, but it would be nice to have. We need more space to store stuff. My poor dad has 3 barns, and 2 of them are basically mine. Okay, let's see here. Hmm. What do you specifically do for your honey production colonies beginning in early spring that you don't do for the rest of your hive? So, the main thing is we super them up. We try to get all of our colonies to honey production size that we can, but we also have to watch them because this is the cream of the crop of our operation, our honey production hives. They have to be massively strong. We don't have a long flow here in Tennessee. We will have a flow if it's a good year for 8 weeks if it's a perfect year. But if it's, an average year, I'd say the majority of our flow happens over a 6 week period. That's where our crop that we extract comes from is about 6 weeks. So our bees have to be stacked and ready to rock. We have to keep them from swarming. If they swarm early, we'll miss a good bit of honey. If they swarm late towards the end of the flow, we've got most of it anyways. And as long as they requeen themselves, then we're not too bad off. So having combs is critical. It makes a huge difference in swarm control, but also cutting them back. Bees naturally want to swarm. And when a hive reaches basically peak population, they want to swarm like mad because they are, well, they've topped out. They're massive colony. There's plenty of nutrition. All of the boxes have been checked for we want to reproduce. So as beekeepers, what we do at the start of the flow is typically go in there, and we may lose a slight bit of honey over this, but we don't get as much swarming. So I think it actually we make more this way. We cut the bees back. We'll make a split off of them. So if we have 100 honey production colonies to do this to, or whatever the number is, we will go in there and we will condense them down to like 4 frames of brood in those honey production colonies. The rest of the brood can be gone over to either beef up other honey production colonies that are a little bit behind, and we bring them up to speed. So we equalize the yards out. And that is really helpful because then when you go into a bee yard, all the colonies are at the same stage or very close. So they all need the same things at the same time. And then if with any extra brood that we have that we don't need for equalizing, we make those April splits with queens. And then we'll have to feed those little splits, even if it's a trickle of flow coming in. Just go ahead and feed them, get them off the ground. But we cut our honey production colonies back because that really cuts back on the swarming. And once we do that, usually we don't have much swarming issues after that. But honey production is quite a bit of work. If you want the big crops in Tennessee, which a big crop for us is averaging 100 pounds throughout the bee yard a piece, then you have to have powerful colonies at the right time of the year. And if you miss it by 2 weeks, then you're not getting that 100 pounds of honey. You'll get 60 pounds, but you're not getting 100. So, there's a few other odds and ends, but I'd say that sums it up mostly. Let's see. Lots of comments. And again, anyone who's come in late, I think something we're going to do in the future. I mean, you guys keep talking with each other. I don't care about that. That's fine. This is a community, and I don't have all the things to say. There's a lot of other people with good suggestions that come on from time to time. But if you're asking me a question, just put caps Kamon and then put your question. Makes it a whole lot easier for me to see it. After testing by refractometer, what's the highest moisture level that you will still extract? Do you average across several supers or kick out the outliers? So I've got a stack of supers right now in the honey house that need to be extracted very, very soon. It would occupy almost this room right here in space. If I Let's say some of those came from one yard or one came from the other, and this one over here is averaging 16.4, and then I've got one that's like 18.9. I'm like, that's a little on the high side. I'll extract that as long as it's pretty even. That'll kind of work out good. At least it has for me in the past. But if, by and large, it's averaging high. Then we need to do something about that. And as soon as our supers hit the extraction, we run a dehumidifier right next to them. You can run a fan over the top of them as well, and this can really dry it up. If you do it for a long period of time, though, your honey could end up being like crazy, crazy thick. I mean, like you can't hardly squirt it out of a container. So this is some of Natalie's honey of beekeeping, like a um, beekeeping with Natalie. I'm going to get that right one of these days. And that's what average honey looks like. I let some sit for a while to do a YouTube video. Maybe some of you recall that video I did with the USA made Pierce uncapping knife and uncapping tank. That was really neat. I saved those supers for several months next to a dehumidifier. And oh my goodness, that was the thickest honey I've ever seen in my life. It was 14 point something. It was so thick. I mean, it literally, you have to use your muscles to get it to come out of a squirt bottle. But hey, talk about intense flavor. That stuff is potent. So, yeah, as far as the lowest I would do, I want it to average no more than 18%. That's really what I prefer. If I A lot of times when I pull my honey off this time of the year, though, my honey will average in the 17s and sometimes the upper 16s. But I really don't like anything above 18% if I can get away with it. Can you use a queen right colony to start a new queen graft? Yes, you can, Shane Williams. However, you need to trick them a little bit. You can't just throw it in there. Um, unless they were already trying to swarm or something, and then you cut down all their cells and then put a graft in there, they could accept them. But what I would do, Shane Williams, is go to Bob Benny's channel and watch how he raises his queens. He does a different system. Mine are all queenless starters and finishers, which is the method that I learned how to do, and I prefer that method. However, he uses a queen right colony to start, but he uses his double screen boards to cut off the mandibular pheromone that's exchanged physically. And so technically they still feel like they're queenless, even though underneath there is a queen laying below. So there's a lot of different techniques to raising queens, but Bob Benny has a really good video on raising queens on top of a mated laying queen below. Kamon, how did you store the supers without getting hive beetles? So two things, Cage and Homestead. First of all, beetles don't like it dry. That doesn't mean they can't survive in it, but beetles don't like honey. If you have frames of just honey, they just don't go in there and sit and eat that and lay eggs on it and reproduce on honey. It's the frames of honey that have bee bread underneath it. They know that that's there and they can dig down into it and lay eggs on that. And then that's where they'll lay it. So these were frames that I knew had no bee bread in them. Look at them and make sure there was nothing at them in them at all. And I kept it very dry. And you can flash freeze them too, or store them frozen, and do it that way. But I actually stored these in my honey house for months. But if there's any bee bread that they can get access to, that protein, then yes, they will reproduce in the bee bread. And then what happens is the larvae, which causes the most damage, then spread from the bee bread to go find ground to pupate in. And they get that yeast that they secrete all over your honey, and that will dilute your honey down and cause it to ferment. So it's all about the proteins and fats. Most things like wax moths, they don't really care about wax that much. They don't care about honey. It's all about the proteins and the fats. Cayman, do you ever use Hopguard? I used it two different times. Not again. I just don't like the product. It's not that great. If the colony is broodless, I've heard it works really good. But you know what? So does everything else when the colony is broodless. I think Hopguard has a lot more work to do with their product. We don't need products that work good when the bees are broodless. We need products that work very good when there's lots of brood in the colony and it's harder to get to the mites. You can do oxalic acid very, very effectively when the bees are broodless. So Hopguard, I don't like handling it. It's messy. It kills some bees to a degree as well. I don't like it at all. I really can't think of one reason why I'd want to use it. Brown family apiaries came in. How long after the flow is over do you feed, and what ratios, and what time of the year do you treat for mites? Well, so when we take honey, we start feeding. So we're already feeding colonies. We've already got some off, and I actually have a video of that coming up pretty soon. Of just one colony that produced 100 pounds of honey, and then I'm going to try to have a video of taking off a bunch of supers at a time in one of the honey production yards. But immediately, we go ahead and start feeding. Our dearth period, it's the toughest part of the season. We don't have a tough winter. So July and August, early September, late June, that is the toughest stretch. That is the gauntlet for beekeepers that are in a similar situation to me. If you can have healthy bees coming out of that into September, go into the fall flow with a good population, as long as the mites are low and they have a decent queen, they're going to do great going through our winter. That's the recipe for success. Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. So right now, as the honey's coming off, all we're doing is we're getting to these colonies. I want to be in every colony every other week minimum. Evaluate the queen, evaluate nutritional stores, and then what about mites? So that was your question. We are treating probably in the next week, maybe after the 4th of July if we can't get things done as quick as I want. I would prefer if I had things lined up better, we should be treating about by right now. But the problem is I have this dumb conference that uh, it keeps getting in the way of my beekeeping. It's making me a terrible beekeeper. Um, but no, I would love to have my honey off already and be treating, and then come back in August, and that's when I do my alcohol washes. Late August, come back, do those washes, and see where you're at. And if you need a treat again, do it. Because yeah, okay, let's say you spend $30 a year treating for mites per colony, and that's a lot of money. But heck, I mean, if some people are charging $10 a pound for honey, that's only 3 pounds of honey. It's not much. And healthy, a good, strong, healthy colony, a powerful one coming out of winter, can get me 80 to 120 pounds a year. And I can make it one split in spring off of them two, and then break them down in half again after the honey flows over. Not including that I'm going to draw some comb with them. Powerful bees make money. So keep them powerful. What do you want, Laurel? Is it? Oh, who sent that? That's Brian? But he sent something on here. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Well, yeah. Sorry. I had to hear listen to something from my producer. Um, so demanding. I mean, she belongs in Hollywood. Okay. Sorry. Cayman, what's one of the best ways to grow your hives, save queen cells, and make splits? So yeah, I mean, and also, guys, this is something that I am learning. Is yeah, I think Gus dealt with that. Clark Kent, this is not the time and place for that. All right, he is gone. So, where were we? Oh, splitting hives, all that jazz. This is a lesson that has taken me a long time to learn. So learn it a lot faster than me. Don't fight your seasons. You might be able to do it a little bit, but it's difficult. It is so hard to split bees in July and August here. It's not impossible, but the percentages are hard. Now, some places, July and August might be prime time for you. There's variables, but for me, in a dearth with robbing going on, it's hard to get queens mated. It's hard to make splits. It's hard to be in bees for a long period of time without them going at each other. It's just the way that it is. And you can have your robbing screens on, you can do all that stuff. But when you're popping boxes and they're separate, they can get in there and they start attacking each other. And so my goal next year is to have all my personal queens reared by June. Any queens that I want for increase, any queens that I want extra to replace any queens that are not performing well, or for backups, because let me tell you, queen issues is like my number one problem in summer. Queens run out of gas and they got to be replaced, and then address the mites. But don't fight your seasons. You can, but it's hard to win. It's very hard to win, and when it's prime time of spring, that's when you make your splits. You see those. You're talking about saving queen cells. If you see some on some combs, cut them off, put them in a, queen cell protector. Pierce Beekeeping out in California that makes the hot knives and everything just came out with a new product. It's stainless steel and they're reusable over and over and over and over again. And they're made to protect swarm cells and supersedure cells because those cells are often so big you can't use the plastic ones almost every time. They're just too big, and you can drop them in these and it'll work just fine. They've got a little cap on them too. You can slide and protect them, and it'll be fine. But anyways, get it done. Do you replace your queens post summer solstice? Yeah, we do. We're we're replacing queens right now, but it's hard to raise queens right now. The bees just don't have the nutrition. They don't have the desire to raise queens right now. It's possible. And I've raised queens at the end of July, but you have to put 3 times the amount of work to raise quality queens in July as you have to in April and May and early June. Hey, Laurel. So one thing I wanted to say, oh, can you give me some water, please? I'm out. I've just been just sweated through multiple shirts today and my bee suit. I just washed that thing too, and it has got to be done again. I think I'm just going to throw it in the creek and let it soak for a couple hours, and then I'll just put it on wet next time I get into my bees. Thank you, Laurel. All right. So, one thing I wanted to update everybody on is we have the Young Beekeeper Sponsorship Program. A lot of you are probably already familiar with this, and several of you have already donated to that. And I want to just say a big thank you to like Steve Chubb and Shane Williams, and there's just so many of you on here. Bonnie Joseph, um, Howard. Nope, not Howard. Harvey Schumann. I don't know why I do that. Harvey. And so many people have donated 26 kids, full rides to our conference. They're sending us videos and little essays of what they're doing and why, what they're doing with bees now, what they'd like to do with bees in the future. And it's going to be really difficult because I don't know how many entries we'll have, but I'm going to guess somewhere around 80 to 100 and something. So we have 26 spots so far, but we'll probably do this again next year. I'm planning on it, and it's going to be fun having that many young people at the conference. And we're going to pick the most, what we would feel like are the most passionate and the ones that will take most advantage of the opportunity, and bring them to our conference. And thank you to everybody for doing that. That's been so exciting. A lot of companies have donated as well, but I'm just shocked because it's expensive. I mean, it's our food. We're paying $250 for their hotel. So it's crazy that we've been able to get 26 full rides for kids for our conference. And I totally plan on helping some of these younger guys and gals to developing the next VARROA mite treatment that'll just be like the treatment of all treatments. One of these kids is going to do it. Just mark my words. Just drop it in, and you just see mites just fly out the entrance. Boy, that would be fun. Cayman, how frequently do you treat with Apoguard after honey supers are pulled? So, after I pull honey supers, just go ahead and feed the bees and put on the treatment. Someone asked earlier about the ratio that I feed. If my bees need a lot of weight fast, like man, there's nothing, then 2 to 1. Why not? Or close to it. One, maybe a little bit more diluted than that, but definitely thicker than 1 to 1. We're trying to add weight onto the colony. But as long as the colonies have plenty of food, then it's around 1 to 1. The last time I fed, it was less than that. It was 1.5 pounds of water to 1 pound of sugar. So it was quite less than 1 to 1. Nectar's like that. Nectar's very thin, so the bees don't care. I'm not adding a lot of weight, but the colonies already had a decent bit of weight, and so I was just adding it to them to stimulate them, and that worked out just fine. But how frequently do I use Apoguard? Usually just once a year. I'll do the full treatment of Apoguard once a year, and then I try to rotate something else in. It's not that you can't use it again, but I definitely believe that you should use 2 modes of action to kill mites each year. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So someone was asking how much it costs to sponsor a kid for the conference. Well, most of them have to have guardians, so that makes it a little bit more expensive. It comes to with us discounting stuff. Um, we give $250 for the hotel reimbursement. So, after they've been there, we give them $250 to reimburse them for that. and then we pay for their food, and then we discount their tickets. And with a guardian, it's about $500. And then if they don't have a guardian, then that would probably drop it about $100 or something like that. Um, so yeah, it's pretty pricey, and when we're doing more than just what the average person would get to, I'm planning on having like t-shirts for the kids and a couple other odds and ends because we want to make this fun. We want the kids to leave this and go, "Oh my goodness, there was so much cool bee stuff. I got to meet Bob Benny. I got to meet that weirdo Canadian Ian Stepler. Cayman is so short. I had no clue." And I get that from kids. It's really annoying. Um, yeah, I bet half of these kids will be taller than me. They'll be like a 16-year-old 6'2" kid or something like that. Laurel's fixing to post the link, but um, and feel free to share this if you guys know of any kids that love bees like on a serious level. Then yeah, share away. The only thing they have to do is get there. Now, but yeah, we're gonna have like t-shirts for them and gear, and we want them to walk away going, "Wow, there's exciting things going on in beekeeping, and this is a community that I can see myself being a part of in the future." And we want to give them the tools to be successful. They don't have to be professionals, but they can be awesome, successful hobby beekeepers, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Cayman, whatever happened to your bee yard cats? So we haven't had them for quite a long time. We have so many coyotes here, John. Cats just don't survive here. I mean, I literally can, like this window I've got right here, every other night, there's coyotes out in the field in front of my house. And I may or may not have helped reduce the coyote population around here, but there is just so many of them, and they go after everything. There's too many of them. They go after all the wild turkeys around here. If I had time, I would definitely help remove some of them. All right. Yeah, Laurel's posting some links below. So, any late age limit on kids? My wife says I'm an 8-year old in a 52-year-old body. Unfortunately, Silver Gorilla, you're just 1 year past the date. Um, but what the age group is right now is that 12 years to 21 years. It was really difficult to decide what it would be, but we kind of felt like that was probably the area because if they get much younger than that, they can't sit still a lot of times. Not all kids are like that, but by and large, they are. And and you get much past 21, you need to start fending for yourself. You know, I would love to be able to help more people, and maybe in the future we will be able to do more. But I don't even really have time for it this year. And thank goodness I have someone volunteering to help me screen all the kids and all the videos and stuff they're sending in because I don't have the time. But um, it's going to be fun to see all the young kids, and because there are kids around the country and you hear about them from time to time, but putting a lot of them together in one place, I think it'll also be exciting because when you're a weird teenager or a young man or woman, your friends, you can still have friends and be a beekeeper, but let's face it, I didn't have a lot of friends as a teenager because I liked outdoor stuff and I liked bees and I was raising chickens and doing a lot of that stuff. So not a lot of my friends could relate. Most of the guys my age were wanting to play video games, and I just wasn't into that. So we want these kids to meet other kids that are weird too, and see that that's all right, and then maybe make a couple friends. Um, so how was your nectar flow this year? It was average. I want to say it was great. Last year was great. Year before was terrible. This year was, if there is such a thing as average, it is average. Cayman, can I call you on the phone sometime? I would love to talk bees. Not really. I was up till 2 a.m. on the phone this morning with a company. I just don't have time. My wife's already threatening to throw my phone into the creek. I don't have any more time. I just don't. I've got to fight to get more time for my family, and I just can't give anything more. I wish I could. I don't have anything left to give. Coyotes, okay, are they pheromone driven? Ah, okay. See, my dad would love to do that. Cayman, you should keep your sugar water on your hives all year long. Does it help? Well, I mean, sugar syrup can be beneficial. It's a tool, though. I mean, it's too much is just unnecessary. But we do feed a lot, and I just pulled 100 pounds out of a colony, and then we put 2 gallons of sugar syrup in it as soon as we got done. And some people will be like, "Why are you doing that? Why don't you just leave more honey?" Well, first of all, I've got some bills to pay, and history has shown that if I take that honey, I can get about $5 a pound selling cases at a time for that price. And I can get that syrup for 39 cents a pound if I buy bulk from Clarkson, Kentucky. So it's a lot more profitable that way. And my bees aren't compromised by it. I feed it. My bees still perform really good. That's what I did last year to this colony. It not only survived, it thrived and made 100 pounds of honey. We just make sure that we don't contaminate our honeycombs with any sugar syrup, and rinse and repeat. And we leave all the fall flow for our bees. We really treat summer and fall and winter as a time for the bees to get things prepped for the next honey flow. It's just how we do it. It's not for everybody. Hey, Jeremy, better late than never. Bottle and honey. What a beekeeper bottle and honey? What kind of an excuse is that? I tell you. What are you looking for when you're selecting a new place for a bee yard? Trees or location? So, the number one thing that I want is an area that I feel like is going to produce well. Good bee yards make beekeeping a lot easier than bad bee yards. That's for sure. Great bee yards are just worth their weight in honey. Now, what that would be is you'd have to know what it blooms in your area, and you'd have to be able to recognize the forage, and that's an art form in of itself, is knowing, okay, what produces honey in my area. Is it sumac? Is it basswood? Is it clover? Sweet clover? um Black locust? No black locust? Do you have autumn olive? Do you have honeysuckle bush? Do you have knotweed? Do you have tallow? So you gotta know what you have, and then hopefully find a location where you see a lot of tallow trees if you're in the south, or autumn olive or whatever. And then you also have to think accessibility. That's huge. Can I get my truck in and out easy? Is it a floodplain? All those things. But you want someone who owns a property that's easy to work with. I like farmers because, contrary to popular belief, farmers are great friends to beekeepers by and large. And they also typically won't sue when they get stung because they're used to getting painful things happen to them in their farm operation. Kind of understand it comes with the territory. They're more reasonable. And you also got to make sure it's protected from livestock, though, or bears. But accessibility and forage dynamics, those are the two big ones. If I have good accessibility and good forage, oh man, I'm cooking with grease. And a good water source nearby, creek, large pond, not too close though. Whew. Man, we got spammers tonight. Huh. Taylor Jarman, tell you all the ways that you're keeping bees wrong. Well, that would assume that I actually know everything. So I don't. I would. I think we could have a fun time though. Absolutely. Um, I don't know if you're on Facebook or email though, but if you wanted to do something like that, we might be able to figure that out, Taylor. You never know. I usually fish with dynamite. Is that okay? Is that acceptable in Florida? I mean, as long as you don't get caught here, it's allowed. Cayman, what's the color of your honey this time? Oh, what color is your honey this year? It's lighter. I'll have to show you guys when I get some of it bottled. So last year was the darkest I've ever had, and That was my 19th season. Not just a shade or too dark. It was several shades darker. I still don't know 100% why. I think we just had a lot more tulip poplar last year than we'd usually have, which is an amber honey, and maybe a couple other honeys that factored into it. We didn't have a lot of privet last year, but man, it was dark. Still tasted good. It actually tasted halfway similar, um, but it definitely was different. This year's definitely lighter. Hmm. Yeah, send rain this way, please. We need lots of it. Cayman, you should raffle a few Reynolds Queens for the youth sponsorship. I'll start the bidding $100 for one. We may consider something like that in the future, but that's given that I actually have a good quality queen. So I don't have one that I can spare right now, but maybe something like that. Honestly, kind of something to watch out for, everybody, is we are fixing to hit, I believe it's 48,000 subscribers, and thank you guys for being one of them. That really helps us out. Helps YouTube treat our channel with a little bit more generosity whenever you like something or subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And I don't do that a lot in my videos. Some people in every video early on, they say, like and subscribe my video. I think that's unfair to the people who watch on a regular basis because I don't like that all the time. So we try to just get to the meat and potatoes of beekeeping. And if you like the content, you can do that. But it does help. Um, One thing that we're thinking, though, when we hit 50,000 is just have this giveaway bonanza, like tickets to the Hive Life conference, bee gear, smokers, pollen traps, a made in America frame feeders, and some other tools. I'm going to try to get a couple companies and see if we can't do like just some crazy huge giveaway on our 50th thousandth subscriber, and then we'll just randomly pick some people. And if you like, so say if you won and you already paid for your tickets, we'll just reimburse you. That's no problem. So I figure we can probably do something like that. But anyways, just watch out around the 50,000 subscriber, which I imagine based on our projections will probably be August sometime, late August, early September. Depends if I can actually get some darn videos made. Um, but yeah, watch out for that, and maybe you guys can win some stuff. Oh, Rob's on here. So hey, Rob, you want to be part of that? We'll just call Rob out right now in front of everybody. Like, Rob, you want to do something for the 50,000 giveaway? Rob's gonna text me here in a second, like, you turd. Um, no, I actually owe Rob a favor. He picked me up in Maryland, helped me out quite a bit. Um, all right, getting back to some questions. Hey Don. Hey, it's Don and Wayne from Florida. Oh, you're sending me some orange blossom honey. Oh, I ran out of the other stuff and it is really good. Orange blossom's one of my favorite honeys. And thank you for sending it to me the last time. And tell Wayne that I said hey, and we'll have to catch up with you guys sometime in the future. Thank you so much. What's your thought on flow hives? Overrated or good production? Complicated, but overrated. If I had to go between those two options, they would fall in the category of overrated. I do like innovation, and even if it's something that is not as useful as a lot of people think that it is, it's still neat to have new things come in the industry, technology, but I'm a big believer in having the education to go with it. A lot of people thought you could get a flow hive that was going to be gentle on bees. It was all these amazing things, but they don't realize is that a flow hive doesn't work in a lot of areas, or it would be totally impractical. Like, well, I don't have to get an extractor now. Well, let's think about this. So a flow hive, if you get the nice one, it's probably about $700 now. Maybe it's more than that. For $700, I can get an uncapping knife made in the USA from Pierce. I can get a USA made uncapping tank from Pierce. And then I can get a small extractor that's metal and it's going to last me decades and has resale value. And all those things will have some resale value, and they're going to last and last and last for a long time. And can grow. Some of it can grow with you, like the knife, the Pearson capping knife. You could run a lot of bees with that knife. Um, and that's how they all used to do it. A lot of professional operations used to just use hot knives. Of course, back in those days, the hot knives were made in the USA and they were decent ones. Anyways, but the flow hive, I produce all my honey over 6 weeks. I can't I can't do what they do with some hives, and you see in the videos where they have one box that the brood's in, and you have one box that the flow hive, and all the honey's getting full, and those bees apparently aren't swarming. It would just have to be the perfect conditions. My flow comes in so strong, so fast over about a 6 week period. If I want to make the big crops, I need two flow hives on my colonies, no questions. Now we're up to $1,400 on one hive, and they're made out of plastic. They're not going to last decades. And if you leave them on during a dearth like we are in right now, July, August, September, all my bees seem to want to do is bee glue everything. And those individual segments, beekeepers that didn't know that left them on in areas like mine for months during the dearth, the bees spent thousands of hours gluing every joint. And now you got to spend hundreds or thousands of hours somehow trying to figure out how to de-glue that so you can move those things and be able to use them again. They can be used. And I'm not saying that they're completely bad, but they're not very practical and they're not cost effective. And honestly, if you're serious about beekeeping long term, you'd be hard pressed to find them feasible. But people do things differently. That's just my 2 cents on it. Well, with inflation now, that's my $2 on it. um, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they made their product. That you just need to have the education to go with it. It's nothing is ever that easy. You can't even raise chickens that easy. So Brian Lee says he tried for 3 years to get the bees to work the flow hive, gave up and put a medium super on it. I tried a product called Permacomb, and it's completely drawn cells that are plastic, and the bees will use it, but it's only after they've accepted it, and it takes so long for bees to accept plastic cells, so much longer than it would for them to take wax. Crazy, crazy longer. But once they actually use it for 1 year, and you leave that residue of wax and honey after extraction, they're a lot faster to get it on, get it going the next year. But ain't nobody got time for that. You can have honeycombs that'll last you 10, 15 years or more. Heck, I know some guys that run combs for 20 something years, honey supers. You can totally do it. I probably got some that are 15 years from the first years I started beekeeping. Honeycombs, never had any brood in them. It's a lot cheaper. I do think it's neat. Oh, by the way, something I wanted to share with you guys, and it's whoa, look at that hair right there. That's what happens when the humidity and the sweat and stuff combine. Hence the hat. Um, so I'm gonna leave a link myself down here, and this is a really interesting channel. The girl that does the videos is named Mayu. She's Japanese, and she runs Japanese honeybees. They are similar in some ways to our bees, but they're not similar in a lot of ways. If you smoke these bees, they will actually literally just leave the hive. They won't handle smoke at all. And they keep smaller colonies, seem to swarm more often, and they don't really want to, let you graft queens like we can do with our bees. It's quite a bit different. And they're the ones that are, when you see the videos of a Japanese hornet getting balled by bees, that's this type of bees. Totally different types of management. What brought that up to my attention is well, I found it this last week and I've really enjoyed the videos. um but they use these boxes. I can't remember how they call them, pile hives, and then they cut it out with a wire and different things, and then they crush and strain. And so they'll crank it down basically like an apple cider device and crush it out of there. And then you have like a wax patty left. And it's just really fascinating. I just enjoy learning new ways to keep bees. Well, in beekeeping, yeah, beekeeping is already expensive without having something like a flow hive. For some people, ultimately, I think the best recipe is keeping your bees healthy and strong, and that's tricky enough and as expensive enough as it is. That's why at our conference this year, I'm excited to say that it sounds like I've been talking to my buddy who runs Appalachian Hivery. So Appalachian Hivery is a new company, and they are about 40 minutes north of me, almost to Kentucky. Whew, dodged it. Um, they do wax dip boxes and mediums, deeps. They're going to be doing bottom boards and lids, and they're just getting started. But I imagine you're going to be seeing a lot more of them in the future. And they have wax dipped boxes that at our conference you're going to be able to get at a super reasonable price. And yeah, so you might think about that because once they're wax dipped, you're good. They're commercial grade, so they've got some knots. It's not knots that'll fall out, but anyways, I'll be going to Evansville, Indiana this next week with him and helping him deliver some equipment. And um, he's not a beekeeper, so I'm trying to help him out to understand what beekeepers want, what they don't want, and don't make them angry. Beekeepers get a little cranky. So there's been a lot of changes in the industry, and I'm going to get to some questions here in a second, but I want to say this to you all because this excites me to no end. I get up in the morning excited about this. Let me see if I can shift this. See all of my office stuff over here to ship stuff. All right, you see that? Oh, there's one of my shirts. Um, you can't see it too good, but you can see that whiteboard up there. This is my conference board. Well, one of my conference boards, and those all up here, down this side, and about halfway there. That's all vendors that are wanting to come to the conference, and we haven't even opened up registration yet. So that's going to be fun. But where I'm getting at is I actually, I talk to these people on the phone. Most of the companies, I'm talking to the owners, the CEOs, whoever. And that's been really fun for me because I'm learning a lot about the industry I just didn't understand before. And I'm seeing a lot of exciting stuff. A lot of exciting stuff. A lot of young people um, coming in with fresh ideas and a lot of motivation. And I'm seeing companies like Man Lake that are really struggling because beekeepers are starting to say, no, we're not going to put up with the sloppy customer service and the expensive prices. Man Lake used to be one of the most affordable companies to buy from. Now I can go, and they're making it easy for companies to compete with them. I just ordered 200 frame feeders from a USA company, Motherload, for 575 a piece with shipping, made in the USA. Awesome quality. I bet they'll last at least 20 years minimum. And I could get the same thing from Man Lake, probably not made in America. They don't say. Same quantity, over $9 a piece. And Clarkson's up just in Kentucky. I had to get all these all the way from California. But it's exciting because the new guy running Motherload, he's like, we're looking into making something for hobby beekeepers. We got frame feeders, and some hobby beekeepers love frame feeders, but we're looking at maybe doing some other types of feeders that hobby beekeepers would like. And he's like, what do you think hobby beekeepers would like? And I laid some things out, and he's like, let people know that things are different here at Motherload. And if they have a type of feeder they would like to see made in the USA, we can do it. And we want to hear feedback. That's exciting to me that a company wants to know what beekeepers want and wants to make it here. And I'm seeing, of course, we got Rob with his vaporizers. We got a lot of young companies, and a lot of them come to our conference. And man, this innovation is so exciting. I haven't ever seen anything like this. When I was in beekeeping, it was Dayton, Kelly's, Man Lake, and then Brushy Mountain to a degree. And when Man Lake just totally flipped the industry when they bought out Brushy Mountain, Kelly's. It wasn't completely Man Lake's fault for buying them out because Brushy and Kelly's had kind of run themselves into the ground. However, Man Lake swooped in, and man, they just totally changed the industry and created a monopoly. But anyways, you all helping by purchasing from these smaller companies in your locations, it's working. There's so much stuff, and some of it I can't tell you, but it is so totally working, and that only means good things for you and me. Yep. So from now on, I'm getting all my frame feeders from Motherload, and yeah, some people really hate them. I don't seem to have any issues with them if the bees are healthy and I put some good floats. Yeah, those mother load. Well, see, I was told by some people that the 2 gallon ones, the bee space aren't quite right, but I found that the bee space is great for me on the 2 gallon. So I'm loving it. I got some 2 gallon feeders, and you want to talk about feeding some bees with gas prices the way that they are. That's part of the reason I bit the bullet and upgraded because driving my red truck, I can't afford to drive every week and fill a 1 gallon feeder. So went ahead and upgraded to two so I could save some fuel. Hey, yeah, you guys see Gus Mitchell? He's the guy with the blue icon because he helps moderate the chat and stuff like that. And in real life, he's built to be a bouncer. He's like me, except like two and a half of me with a red beard. Yeah. So don't mess with my buddy Gus. Um, However, no, he's actually really nice. He helped. Like Pierce wanted to create a product. Well, Gus wanted to see a product be created that used to be available to beekeepers, and Gus reached out to Pierce, and Pierce was like, "Yeah, we can make that." And boom, now the product's available. Thanks, Gus, for getting that made. I just got 5 of those, and actually just filmed a video using one. You guys will see that shortly. Who owns Man Lake now? So Man Lake is owned by Gray Mountain Venture Capital or whatever they were called. Sold them. And see, that's the problem with Man Lake is that it's all about the board of directors. We've got to make money now. And so they just raise free shipping from $100 to $150 to qualify. So the new CEO says we're going to do everything we can to make it better for you, the beekeeper, keep products more available for you, better customer service. Things are going to be better. That's what I promise you. 2 weeks later, if it was even that. Oh, by the way, my first act in office, we are going to raise free shipping from $100 to qualify to $150. Meanwhile, I'm talking to companies who are much smaller who are like, we're doing fine at $100 with free shipping. We're not changing, but they don't have a board of directors to satisfy. And they also plan on being in business with you guys for the next several decades. Whereas this company is just like Venture and most of the companies that you all have seen in the past, and they're buying it, going to wring it out and make our product line suffer in the industry. And then they're going to resell the company, rinse and repeat. So buy elsewhere. They just don't, that used to Man Lake was the company everybody was saying buy from Man Lake. I'd been buying from Kelly's and Dayton for years. I'm like, who's this Man Lake company? They're way over in Hackensack. Why in the world would I ever buy from them? But Kelly's got bought out, quality plummeted, and I couldn't even get them on the phone anymore. I started buying from Man Lake. I was like, oh man, I love these frames. Shipping's free, they're fast, they're courteous. This is great. Man Lake's the best. I used to say Man Lake was the best. Crazy how fast things can change. Do you have to use smoke to fill your frame feeders? Sometimes I have to smoke to get the bees out of there, but not too often. All right, get into some questions. Cayman, what do you use for floats? We have used corks before. Okay. Hey, Hat Bee Acres. Hope you guys are doing good. So, I use sticks, just thin sticks that are about that wide and they're long. And you just stick a couple of them in there, and there's spaces like in from on the edges and in the middle. Mother loads feeders has some good textures on the wall for the bees to be able to grip. A healthy bee you can watch just walk right on out of there, but the floats can help, and so I like to throw them in there, and that works fine for me. If I see hundreds of bees drowning, that's an issue. A lot of times that happens when there's a queen issue, mites are high, viruses, EFB. When bees are sick, they drown because the bees are weak. If I'm seeing 10 to 15 bees drowned in there, I don't worry about it. And some of you may think that's brutal, but that actually makes a lot of sense because a big, strong colony is losing 1,000 to 1,500 bees every day. Where do you think they're dying? They're dying out in the field working. And if they happen to die in the frame feeder, if they expire in the frame feeder, that can happen too. They're on their last legs, so to speak, and if they fall in there, they just don't have the energy to survive. They're going to die somewhere, and it just happens to be in the frame feeder. So to me, I if I when I see 40 colonies in a yard and 2 out of 40 have mass drownings, I know there's either a queen issue, a mite issue, some disease, something is funky in that colony. So frame feeders are actually a quick indicator. Hey, they're not accepting the feed, they're drowning. Something's up with this colony. You need to look at it further. So for me, it's actually a indicator that I use. And I just like the fact that they don't blow away. I don't have to drill holes in my lids. I don't have to pull off like a top feeder. You have to pull that off and set it down and pull it back up. That's okay if you're working a couple hives, but if you're working through a yard of 40 to 50 colonies, it gets old pretty quick. Just personal preferences. Frame feeders are not a perfect feeder. Yeah, unfortunately, big money sometimes does kill a great company, and it's too bad. But thankfully, we have the technology now to communicate, and we can talk about, and at our conference, it's a battleground. It is a total battleground, and you can come to our conference and see 8 different types of extractors this year. You're going to be able to see dozens and dozens of companies, and some probably close to you, that make different styles of boxes and sizes and different things, and it's a battleground, and vendors come out to compete for your business. And it's amazing, the vendors that did the best at our conference sales wise and beat Man Lake and other companies like that, they were the ones that weren't the biggest, they were the ones that came out to serve you the most. And people can tell they've got good quality, they like us, they don't hate us, and they treat us with respect. Hey, we'll buy from these guys. Yeah, well, Keegan, legally, I can't open feed here in Tennessee. People still do it, but in some states, it's actually illegal to do that because you could spread disease. So I have to be careful recommending some things like that. Right, and I was talking to someone the other day. They were looking for certain products, like where to get it outside of Man Lake, and I'm like, you know what? That product I think only you can get from Man Lake, and like right now, I need syrup. I don't know anywhere else where I can get 39 cents a pound syrup. So I'm going to go up to Clarkson on my way up, grab 10,000 pounds of it, and come on back. But you bet your boots, if I could find somebody else that was in the same vicinity, I would be going there. Kamon, have you had trouble rolling larvae with the grafting Chinese grafting tool? Do you think the German grafting tool is easier, or am I just bad at grafting? Ha! I think you need a little bit more practice, Shane. There it could be it could be something with your Chinese grafting tool that's part of the problem sometimes with them because they're made cheap. They need to be tweaked a little bit. Is the plunger part that's supposed to push the larvae off going over the top of the larvae? It should be sliding perpendicular with that quill piece and just push it right on off of there. And some people find filing or sanding down the end of the quill or the tip of it that you scoop it with helps a little bit too. But you probably just need a little bit of practice. I wouldn't say the German grafting tool is easier. I've used the German grafting tool the most. Um, Almost everyone I talk to after they've tried both say they like the Chinese grafting tool better. It's easier for someone who's not familiar with grafting. But then again, you may get the German one and go, man, this is the cat's meow. So I have one of each. Actually, I've got five German grafting tools because I'm always misplacing them like a hive tool, and a handful of Chinese ones and another type or two. Cayman, how many judges are we going to have for the honey show? How many entries can we submit? So, okay, part of the reason I'm going to Evansville this week is because the Welsh honey judging system is going to be there. We had a lot of great entries last year, and we have people saying they're going to bring honey from out of country. That's kind of why I feel like if I'm impressed with what they do at the Heartland Apicultural Society meeting here next week, I'm going to have them come down to our conference and do it. And they have the capability of bringing like five, six, whatever judges we need for the volume that we have. They're trained for a year before they're a certified Welsh judge. Um, and the guys that I'm losing my voice again. The guys that we had last year did a phenomenal job, but it's going to grow quite a bit. So we're going to see how they do, and probably have them because we want to add a lot of categories too, which is going to make it even more difficult. We want two creamed categories. I want just regular creamed, and then I want infused with something natural. Could be cocoa, could be vanilla bean. If I was judging, that's going to be my favorite. It could be pecan chips with cinnamon, whatever, which is also very good, by the way. And we're also going to have like candles. We're going to have a lot of other categories. We might even have a photography group as well. So we're going to really invest heavily in time and also some money into this next year. So we don't have that set up now on the judging because we're still determining the route that we're going to go. But I would bet that it's probably going to be the Welsh judging system. And you should be able to submit one per category. And it should be quite broad. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully, after this week, I will know and be able to give you guys an idea of what's going to be going on. How late in the year do you rear queens? I used to raise them to the first part of August. It just gets so difficult that late in the season. Very, very difficult. Typically, if I want to push the season, I'll go to the end of July. But nowadays, I really try to get all my queen rearing done by June. April, May, June. Can you push the season? Yes, but it's harder to raise queens that time of the year. The best quality queens I feel like are raised in May and June in my season because there's just so much more nutrition in the hives and nutrition coming into the colonies, especially early June. And queens are all about having that great nutrition, also having great drones. Early in the year, we have more drones and they're healthier. Later in the year, if we haven't taken care of mites, they're infested with mites and viruses, so they're shooting blanks half the time. And drones that don't receive as much nutrition later in the year aren't as fertile as ones in spring. So I really just these days I'm trying not to force things because it seems sometimes the harder I push against the limits of what nature will give me, the more frustrated I get. And I'm just tired of being frustrated. And that's something I failed to mention. Jeff Thomas brought that up that Mother Lode does have cap and ladders with their feeders that you can get. I don't like cap and ladders. A lot of people do. A lot of people love them. I just personally, I don't want them. They're more expensive too. Not a lot more expensive, but I just would prefer not to. I just prefer the floats. Any recommendations on how strong of an electric fence to put up? I don't know anything about that hardly at all, Dwayne. Sorry. Now, one of my friends who's actually going to be a speaker at our conference, Etienne Tardif, up in the Yukon, they have grizzly bears and brown bears or black bears or maybe all of the bears. They got tons of bears. Heck, they're so far north they may have polar bears. I have no clue, but anyways, he has to have a stupid strong fence, and he did a video recently on how to ground it properly and how he keeps his bees. His name is Etienne Tardif. I want to type it in down here, and you can just type this in YouTube, and you should be able to find him. He's got some great videos on extreme cold winter weathering, and I consider him a guru in the area of insulated beehives. And he also has some good information on fencing for bears, big bears. Hey, Alan Wheeler, thanks for coming on, buddy. We'll see you at the conference, if not before. Hey, John Smith. Hey, we're looking forward to seeing you there. No problem. That's true. Caleb made note that part of the reason queens don't do as good in later in the years because there's more robber flies, dragonflies, yellow jacket, hornet populations. They're all up later in the season, where in the spring they're very small or non-existent. You have a bear here that likes you have a bear that likes honey. Can he be a judge? No, but you can bring him as a rug and we'll stick him on stage. That's the only bears that are allowed anything beekeeping, in my opinion. Hey, Matt F says, Cayman, to get that price on the frame feeders, you almost have to buy 1,000 of them. Wow. What about the guys who only have 20 to 40 hives? So let me check really quick. I'm pretty confident that's actually not quite the case. So I'm looking at Motherload right now, and I'm going down to their deep two frame feeders. They are 2 gallon. And yeah, if I buy 210, I can get them for 575. And that's what I did. I purchased 210 of them, and that includes shipping as well. Now you can get them for 485. Now, you may be looking at the ones with the cap and ladders built into them. They would be more expensive. I did not get the cap and ladders. And so that's why I was able to get 210 for 575 for my 2 gallon frame feeders. However, I have some 1 gallon dated frame feeders that have done wonderful for me, but those things have lasted and lasted. They're in wonderful, great shape. And these mother loads, I think, are built even better. So I expect to get 20 years on the low end with these things, unless I do something stupid. And that happens. We all have those moments. 30-mile rating minimum nasty voltage. Ooh, that makes my teeth hurt just thinking that. I've backed up into a hot fence a couple times, and whoo, it about make you chip a tooth. And no problem, Matt. No problem. I sometimes I'm wrong on here, and I need people to make sure that what I say is not incorrect. I've had to recant once or twice. Not fun. Let's see. Let's see. So, everyone's talking about zapping Pooh Bear as he goes. And if anyone who has not seen a bear tear through a bee yard, you just don't know. I haven't actually seen it in person, but I've had friends of mine who have sent me videos and pictures over the last 20 years, and a bear can just totally ruin you. Wesley Bumpers, Lazy Bee Farms. Hey, Wesley. Well, thanks for coming on tonight. Um, I do really appreciate the donation, but I appreciate you coming on. If you have any questions, hit me with them, and we hope to see you in a future chat as well. We're going to try to devote more time in the future towards better videos. We're trying to even some things out, having to reduce the bee yards a little bit. I think we're going to get under 200 by fall and be able to spend more time working on videos in the conference. But we really appreciate you guys supporting us through this live chat and encouraging us to keep doing more of it. I remember the first time Laurel finally talked me into doing a live chat, and she's like, It's a good idea. I'm like, no, it's a terrible idea. And of course, that's all you have to say to your wife just for God to make sure that you're proven wrong, because sure enough, it worked out, and people did enjoy these live chats, and I've never ceased to be amazed at how many people come on in here every night and listen to me talk about bees. So we're all crazy together, I suppose. I will talk bees until I lose my voice, basically. So let's see right here. Let's see if I can pull this up. I got some pictures to show you guys. And it's based off of one of the questions somebody asked. Oh, just had someone email me about being a Hive Life vendor, so well, that'll be interesting to see who that is. All right. Someone asked about the test yard. So here's some pictures from this year's test yard. That is a 1 gallon bucket full of unfortunately dead bees that we did an alcohol wash on. And you can see some of the guys right in here. Those are some of my buddies from Columbia, Tennessee. This one's Barry Brown. This one's Richard Brickner. And they're sampling and counting bees and mites while Laurel and I are going through and pulling out frames of larvae and shaking them. So the test yard is ongoing. And I've been saying for months now that I'm going to find a late night where I can just crunch through and get all this up on a video. I just every time I say that, something comes up like this live chat. Really, that's what I should be doing right now. Probably is working on that instead of this. Um, but the experimental yard is going very well. We collected some really good data so far from the colonies. The experimental yard is up here at my house now, and this is another fellow that helped us out named Jess. So the washes were too low this year to start treating yet. We averaged 0.4% infestation throughout the 52 colonies tested. So that's too low to really get a good idea to treat. But the test yard and the experimental yard is ongoing. And I promise at some point that I will have this information more available. But right now, I'm trying to work on the conference and get the honey off, and some queens mated, and oh, just a few other odds and ends. And I apologize, I've overdone it again. But we will definitely have that information available to you guys. And Dick is starting to help me with that. He's compiling that data. He's better at it anyway, so I'm sure it's just a matter of time now. All right, so Appalachian Hivery is on. They're the ones that do the wax tip boxes. I'll be riding with them up to Evansville. That'll be fun. So I'm a new beekeeper. I have two strong hives, but they don't draw out frames as fast as they're bringing in resources. Any ideas? Better comb. Well, if there's a strong flow going on, that's normal. Bees will just they don't think, well, we can't really draw comb fast enough. They go and they go and they go and they get it. And that's where new beekeepers run into swarming issues. Better comb could help with that. I've heard good things from it if it's wired. If it's not wired, it will sag. So make sure you have a way of wiring it, or you wire it yourself. But I've heard from Frederick Dunn and also another YouTube buddy of mine that wired they got some without the wires, and then they got some with the wires, and they found out that once you got it wired, the bees use it for brood very well. And so that's something that you could do. If you're needing to draw a box and they're ready to do it, pull up a frame of eggs or larvae up into that next chamber. Now, if you're putting on a honey super that's not the same size as your brood frames, that's really difficult. Difficult to get them to draw that unless you have some bait combs you can pull up there. So Nancy from Harleysville, PA says that she loves her Pierce knife. Bought the tub too. And I've got a lot of questions about that recently, because a lot of emails, because a lot of people are extracting honey for either for the first time or looking to upgrade, and they're asking if the Pierce hot knife is as good as it looks like in my video. And It is. I mean, it's made to do a good job. And yes, you do pay more. But if you look at my extraction setup and the stuff that I use, it is American. Now, granted, I'm in business. So I've got to have good tools that I can depend on because if one goes down on me, it's costing me money. And I don't have an extra brain cell for it either right now. But you buy once, you cry once, and it has resale value. And or someone in your family will end up using it, something like that. I love stuff like that. So, um, anyone that's curious about that, I feel very confident in saying that those Pierce knives are going to do a good job for you. And if not, I'm sure that the owner would be happy to talk to you about it because they have customer service there. Where do you recommend staying while attending the Hive Life conference? As a resort doesn't have very good reviews. So that's a great question. So for those of you coming to the conference, this might be a interesting thing to talk about. So hotels. So two things really quick. We'll talk about hotels, and if you're coming, if you signed up, you're going to get this. You're going to get an email with this, one for each person that you signed up for. So two people, two of these. You can print off a copy and bring this in. We scan it. You get your stuff. You're in. Boom. Almost that fast. Now, you can also pull that up on your phone or electronic device, and if it's got that barcode on it, we can still scan it. You're good. Now, hotels. Hotels. There's a lot of different options that we could get. I haven't had the time to get as many as we had last year. Last year we had like 6 different hotels with discounts. Right now I've only got 3 up. Where would I stay? I don't know. The Wilderness, which is the one that is connected to the conference, it's expensive, overpriced, and I hate their guts. However, I can't get them to lower the price down anymore. The rooms, I mean, right now we've got them down to almost like 155 a night or something with our discount. The reason it's so expensive is because they have an indoor water park, which if you like indoor water parks, you will have access to. However, I don't know many beekeepers that are going to be taking advantage of the water park feature. And I told them this, they still don't care to lower the price down very much for us at all, even though we're going to bring them tons of business. They're very nice. Anyways, so the rooms are probably worth what you'd expect if you paid around $70 to $80 max for a room. They're not nasty, but they're not nice. The reason they're so expensive is because they're connected to the convention and mainly because they have the water part. There's hotels within just a couple miles down the road, and you can get as nice or much nicer of a stay for significantly less if you're willing to drive. Some people want to be able to walk, though. So we have that as an option. I'm going to have about 2 or 3 more hotels available in the future that have discounts if you're willing to wait. But we do have a couple other options on there right now with discounts. There are some people that are literally Airbnb and being. There are some folks that are renting cabins. There's some people bringing RVs to an park. So, I mean, there's a lot of different options. But do I have a personal recommendation? Sleep In did well for us last year. The Governor's Crossing, we've got them on the website. If you go to the website, you'll see hotel travel information, and there'll be more of that available soon. Sleep In will probably be full very quickly. They only have 67 rooms, and those are going to go quick. So Sleep In, it's good. Hayden Maxwell said, "Oh my goodness, I actually made it for a live chat." Woo! All right, my youngest brother's named Hayden, by the way. So I'm visualizing my younger brother right now. So Nancy says Sleep In was fine. Well, thanks for the review, Nancy. That's kind of what I heard. Is it's not like a ritzy place, but the price is also. I think Sleep In's $65 a night. For the Thursday night, it's $55, and it's 65 Saturday. No, yeah, Friday and Saturday night, 65. Thursday night, $55. Yeah, that's what. So Carl Sledge says, Cayman, how do you get the bees from the swarm out of your pockets? That was a really difficult one to execute. I had like 15 bees up my pants on that one. Um, I didn't get stung. I couldn't believe it, but I was catching queens that day, and I had a couple in my pocket, and this swarm was going through the air, and I had a queen like in my hand, and they were going into my pockets where the other queens were, and they were getting on my hands, and it was really tedious. I had to drop my drawers and like walk back to the house. So it was a little bit weird, but yeah, I live in a secluded area. People people expect weird things from me at this point. Matt F. Came and I have made the best honey harvest that I have ever made. For over 400 pounds of honey. Any advice to move it would be appreciated. So, okay. Well, I don't know what your location's like. I sell mine a lot of times at farmers markets, co-ops, where farmers and country folks are at. I don't have big cities real close by, and but I don't charge a crazy high price for mine, and everyone's entitled to their opinion on how much their honey's worth to them. When I got into beekeeping, I think this is something that's a little bit that I struggle with. I'm a little sentimental about is I was able to get a quart of honey when I got into beekeeping for about $10 to $11. That was normal, 20 years ago. And now everybody wants $1 an ounce. But part of me wants people to actually be able to be able to afford to buy enough honey to be able to eat on a regular basis. And but you also got to make money and recoup the investment. So what I'm getting at is, are you charging $1 an ounce? That's going to be a lot harder to move than $8 a pound. And not everywhere is the same. I live in a town that has like 2,000 people in the township or whatever. There's more people than in the county, of course. But it's a small area. I mean, the jobs here aren't paying $20 an hour. Nowhere close to that. I don't know what the average here, but it's definitely not $15. Probably $12, 10 bucks, something like that. Probably $10. So people can't afford to pay as much here. You go to Nashville and those people are so free with their money. You might as well just help help lighten their wallets a little bit. Anyway, so it depends on your location. Marketing. I'm not an incredibly good marketer when it comes to honey. I'm a terrible person to ask. We sell our honey in cases, 4 cases, 3 cases, 5 cases at a time for like $5.50 to $6 a pound. Yeah, $5.50 a pound to stores that then resell it for us. They mark it up. And I think most of them are selling their honey for about $8 a pound. And so they're making roughly about $3 a pound on top of what we're doing. Not all of them charge that much. Some of them are getting about $2 a pound. So about $14 for a 2 pound jar. Anyways, how to move it? I don't know. How's that? I really don't know. I, all the stores that I've ever gotten is because I open my mouth, right? And I talk bees, and then people are like, "Oh, cool. Well, I've got this farmers market." And I used to do farmers markets when I was a kid. I did CSAs and I sold vegetables and stuff. So I have a lot of contacts in the growing area, and a lot of those farmers market people would love to have another product to sell with them. But are you okay with not making as much on your honey? That's the trick. So if you're wanting premium prices, I am the worst person to talk to when it comes to that. Oh man, the dirt rooster just showed up. It's time to shut this thing down. Um oh. So yeah, so Randy's been doing a cutout. I don't know. Everyone talks about Randy and all this work that he does, but it's all in videos. Sometimes I wonder if it's like one of those reality TV shows, like where they're lost on an island. Does Randy even do the stuff himself? I think at this point, he's so loaded. He just gets people to do the work for him, and he just acts like he's doing the work. It's one of those reality TV shows. Um, he's more of a cut up than a cut out guy. Oh, I'm gonna pay for that one. Good deal, Bonnie Joseph. Glad to hear that you had a decent experience. Zach, all right, you guys coming to the conference. His first year beekeeping, and he's all in now. Oh my goodness. This conference is not going to help with that at all. There's going to be every bee toy under the sun. Dollywood is right down the road, yes. And so that's one of the cool things about this location is you have knife works down the road. You have all kinds of cool shops. You can convince your spouse to come who's not into bees because there's tons of cool things for them to do too. That's really why we have it in this location. You're welcome, guys. Hey, some girls find that useful too, though. They're like, I turn my husband loose at some of the knife shops, and then I do the bee stuff. We know how it works. Can we stay in a van down by the river? Hey, Drew, knock yourself out. I don't freeze your butt off if it gets cold. I don't want to be on the news. Hive Life conference attendee freezes to death in old Astro fan. You know, all right, good deal. So, we're hearing lots of good reviews about the Pierce hot knife. All right. I've seen some Aussie beekeepers on here, and I got to say, my condolences to getting the varroa mite. And you guys, hopefully, I don't know how in the world you'll get out of this one, but if you guys do, that'd be awesome. I wouldn't wish varroa on anybody, but if you guys have any questions, varroa related, let me tell you, I make it a personal mission of mine to fry as many of those mites as possible, and I'm totally happy helping other people do the same. Speaking of that, though, tomorrow I'm actually leaving out like at 6 in the morning, and I will be going to Missouri, and meeting up with Corey Stevens, who has supposedly some of the best VSH queens in the country. They're supposed to be very mite tolerant and maybe even resistant. So Corey seems like a really straightforward guy. Some of the treatment free crowd are a little sketchy and some of them are flat out liars. And I know this for a fact, but Corey seems, besides being a little bit of a hick, he seems like a very likable guy. I hope Corey's watching this. I'm really looking forward to seeing him tomorrow. And but he seems to do all the right things and seems to be working really hard on the genetics and doing all the right stuff. So I'm eager to get these bees from him and then report back to you guys after about a year on how the alcohol washes look. I'm going to be alcohol washing these things like crazy, monitoring the mite loads compared to, and I've got a lot of years of experience with my bees and knowing how many mites they should have over the course of a season, where they start out, where they end up. And if these significantly are different, I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be really excited. Even if it's not enough to I can be treatment free, if I could just make it to where my treatments were instead of killing 4% infestations in August, I'm killing like a 1.5% infestation. Oh, that's so much easier. All right. Hello, Cayman. Still a chance they will catch the varroa mite here in OZ. The agriculture department has shut down movement of colonies. I think it's the wild colonies where they could get established, and that's kind of what I heard. And it's hard to know. It's all secondhand information. Actually, by the time it gets to me, fourth hand, fifth hand, who knows? But I did hear that if there was some swarming, and what concerns me is that it sounds like it's not something that's happened in the last month or two. It sounds like it's been around for months. And that all it takes is a swarm, yeah, getting out to the wild populations. And wild bees typically are more swarmy because the cavities are smaller and sometimes disposition of the bees too. And hopefully they're able to cut off that area and, unfortunate as it may be, eliminate those colonies and eliminate those mites. We're rooting for you. I hope that works out. That would be great. So Angela Wilbanks says last year was the first time coming to Hive Life, and thank goodness both of my children came with their trucks because I went home with 2 truckloads full of new toys I bought. Well, last year was nothing compared to what we'll have this year. Last year was I was very thankful for what we had last year. It's very, very difficult to get. Well, nobody knew who we were hardly, and the vendors that really stepped up the most weren't your big companies at all. Man Lake didn't show up with an extractor. Heck, they didn't even really show up. They didn't backed out on us last minute. You Better Be came, but they didn't bring any stuff to sell. It was your smaller companies, your mid-sized companies. They came out and brought extractors. Happy Acres brought a lot of Sivens or Savans, and Dogwood Ridge brought a ton of Lyson. Hillco brought a ton of their stuff. We had all, and of course, we had tons of woodenware. It was the medium-sized companies that did well at our conference. And this year, I've got companies coming from overseas, good companies, and Thorn Manufacturing, America's newest American-made extractor. Even the motors are made here. They're going to be there with a complete line of uncapping tanks, extractors, wax melters, all kinds of things. So it's going to be exciting. It's an exciting time. Lot of lot of blood in the water on some of these bigger companies like Man Lake and Data, and the younger, smaller companies are hungry. And I think that we could be seeing a really switch over the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, Hayden Maxwell. Most of Dayton's facilities look worse than my shed, and that's bad. It and I've talked to some of the owners. It's just they have no drive at all. It's sad. I'm sure CP Dadent would roll over in his grave if he knew. Where else can the mites live other than in a beehive? So they have to have a host. They're very fragile without that. Um, Only on a similar type of bee. They can't live long without being in a colony. They can hitch a ride, like they can. A honeybee could land on a flower, that might drop off onto the flower, and then a another bee get onto that. And also, like viruses can transmit that way too. So let's say that there's a colony of your bees that's coming down with deformed wing virus, and it's fall time, and that colony still got 15,000 bees, and 5,000 of them are foragers, whatever. They're going out there, and if they have high virus loads, they are leaving viruses on the flowers as they leave them and spreading that to other bees of different species and your bees. So that's why it's important to keep the mites low so we can keep the viruses low, which actually are more damaging. Not only does that affect honeybees, but bumblebees are greatly affected by deformed wing virus too. So we have actually quite a bit of a responsibility as beekeepers to keep our bees as healthy as we can, because that also impacts other things besides honeybees. But other places that they have to have a host, and really it's Asian honeybees, our honeybees. Um, Basically, it's honeybees, but there's different types of honeybees. Does the buy once, cry once apply to buying one of Corey's breeder queens? I don't know. I don't know. We'll find out on that. But honestly, if they do half of what he says they'll do, I'll be monstrously impressed and pleased. And just think, if we could create a future where we know companies that are giving us this result with this line of queens, and that helps retard our mite loads over the years. Oh man, that could just help all of us out so much. That would be wonderful if that actually comes to fruition. Yeah, the best mix of feed to draw out comb would be 1 to 1 at the thickest, and you could actually go like 3/4 of a pound of sugar to 1 pound of water, which is thinner. But that's okay if you're not needing to add weight and just wanting to stimulate the colony. You can get your syrup pretty thin. Nectar is more often than not thinner than 1 to 1. In the bee books and stuff like that, a lot of these kind of rules, quote unquote, they are there to give you guidelines. But when you get to be more experienced beekeeper, you realize that there is a lot of room to wiggle, and you can adjust that for your needs or the bee's needs, and which should be one of the same. Cayman, see if you can get hive lifter equipment for the mid-sized beekeepers. I am Sawmill Charlie's Bee Farm. I am trying so hard. I'm talking to two companies that have a mid-sized hive lifter, trying to get them at the conference. A lot of people are still a little skeptical. They're used to the old school way of doing these conferences, and most conferences are not vendor friendly. We keep it affordable. We advertise for you. We try to make it to where worst case scenario the vendors break even on all their expenses. But you know, but if they have crap product, we can't do anything about that either. But we really try to go out of our way to make this an attractive conference for vendors to set up because I definitely enjoy seeing them. Oh, so it's Hive Alive that's wanting to be a vendor again this year. Um, oh wait, oh he called our conference Hive Alive. Yeah, we're Hive Life. That happens a lot. They do a bee vacuum. So Randy the Dirt Rooster uses this vacuum and says it's good. Well, if Randy says it's good, I don't know about that. It's a little suspicious there. You gotta watch Randy. Yeah, I'll get back with that guy. So, do bees tend to draw combs after the solstice when you put feed on them? Laura M. Good question. It depends on your area. There are places that are after the solstice that are just hitting their flow right now, way up north. We're in a dearth. It really has more. The solstice and the timings do matter, but not as much as what is going on out in the field. And that would be the pollens and the nectar. For example, here after the solstice, our bees are going this way. They're going down. There's not enough pollens to keep they can't afford to for the queen to lay 1,500 eggs a day and keep the population huge. They don't have enough pollen coming in to sustain that growth. They'd starve themselves to death. And when bees are nutritionally compromised, they're more susceptible to mites and everything else under the sun. And bees are get conservative and they start dropping the population. Some people live in areas that have great pollen flows even in summer months. They just have plants that produce that we don't. I don't live in a great location for beekeeping. It's not a terrible one, but it's definitely not a great location. There are places right now that are after the solstice hitting the prime part of their honey flow, and the bees are growing, the pollen's coming in. Bees will draw combs like crazy. So for Tennessee, you can draw combs right now, but the colonies have to have a lot of extra nutrition, have to be packed, and you're going to have to feed a lot to get that to happen. And it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have a strong laying queen. The further you get away from that diverse pollens coming in, the harder it's going to be because they will just drop the population. I have seen some years where I'm able to draw combs during the fall flow, but that's only on a really good one. It's not normal. They have to be a very strong colony with a good queen and a good fall flow with plenty of pollen. So solstice does have its effect to a degree, but I don't get tied so much to the timings as much as what I know in my area matters. And that's really the nutrition. When are the flows going? When are they not going? So will bees go after 4-to-1 sugar water? So here's something that's interesting, Hayden. The thicker and the more concentrated the syrup, the less bees want to go after it. So one thing I learned when I started buying syrup is bees don't go after it the same way they went after 1-to-1. Bees prefer nectar. That's their preferred food source. Honey, the only time, if you have a frame of honey and you set it out during a honey flow, they don't touch it. They don't care. They want the nectar. If you set out a honey frame during a dearth, they'll rob that thing out faster than you can say Jack Sprat. But if there's two opportunities out there, if you have honey thick syrup, like a 4-to-1, something that's really thick, versus a 1-to-1, they will wear out that 1-to-1 and not even touch hardly that 4-to-1 until they've run out of 1-to-1. And even when they've run out of the 1-to-1, they won't as aggressively forage that 4-to-1 still. Dilute it down a little bit and just try a small amount. Try a small amount, but if you dilute it down, you'll find that they like it a lot more. Bees just don't like to forage out thick syrups near as much. Yeah, Hayden Maxwell. I don't know where you're at, Hayden, as well. It sounds like you're near a data facility. I think you said earlier, but you may have a flow going on, but I would try a small amount. Try some jar feeders and water it down to like take half of the 4-to-1 and then put like a pint of that 4-to-1, which is basically syrup, to this equal parts of water. Mix that together. See if that changes things up for you. If not, you're in a flow or something. Well, everybody, I told Laurel I keep it around 2 hours. I'm losing my voice. I've got to get off of here. We'll do this again soon, and bring your questions. Be ready for them. I appreciate you guys so much, and we're looking forward to seeing you, so many of you, anyways, at the conference or at Evansville this coming weekend, and other events that I'll be doing. I'm going to try to get a website soon that's a personal website that's going to have where I'm going to be at, because some people have gotten frustrated because I've been at places nearby and they just didn't know. I do YouTube videos, but not everybody gets them, unfortunately. Um, but Sorry, I got sidetracked with some stuff. But I'm going to try to have it more uniform where you guys can see where I'm going to be at, and we can hopefully meet up and chat bees there. Anyways, everybody, thanks for coming on. I don't have a schedule for live chats yet. Laurel and I were talking about that today. One of these days, I will have it scheduled. I promise. Right now, we're flying by the seat of our pants and praying that we can get all the work done. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.